All right, so as always, before we start, if you appreciate the content, if you like the fat, fluffy red hamster, please give a like and a sub because it will be greatly appreciated. So, I know it's been a while since I've covered pretty much any topic on YouTube, I guess, but yeah, I'm finally back. Just been really busy lately. And during this time that I was also taking to focus on work and other things, I've also been trying out a new OS here on my Pinebook Pro, and it's quite actually it's been a pleasant surprise, I'd say, because I didn't really know what to expect from this thing here. But yeah, I've enjoyed it. So, which OS did I try? There's a big hint here. It's on the screen. It's called Endeavour OS. I'm not too sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but I would say Endeavour OS. And let's just start off from the installation. Now, on the install, uh, it was good. There was just one major problem with the installation that I had. Um, and that's, and I didn't even, sorry, before I say what my major issue with the install on the Pinebook Pro was, I just want to say that I did not get my ISO file from here. I actually got it from the Endeavour OS GitHub page. And I'm kind of not too sure what led me there. Yeah, I'm not too sure, but I remember that I did download the installation image from the GitHub page. So, yeah, the installation process was good. It uses Calamari, so it's, quite stock, right? It's what most distros use nowadays. And the one issue that I had with it is that once you configure everything and you select what you want, blah, 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 it will actually start the install, but then it'll halt. It'll stay frozen on some screen. Can't remember what it was, but the problem is not that it stays stuck on this screen. I don't know what it's exactly doing at this stage. I don't know if it's a bug or not, but it stays stuck on a single page and it will not move. And you will think that the system has frozen. So you might want to, I don't know, restart, redo the installation, or you might want to give up. But in reality, it is actually working and it takes about maybe 10 to 15 minutes to move away from that screen. And then after that, the installation is quite smooth. So that's the only issue that I had with it, and it's a little bit annoying that it's not very clear. It should be clear saying like "please wait" or something is happening in the background, whatnot. But yeah, that was my only problem with it. But then after that, running it is quite nice. I chose to have my generic Mate desktop here. I really like Mate, because it's just very bare bones, but it still looks good, right? I've got a dock here, a panel up here, have all my apps up here. It still looks good on the Pinebook Pro. It's definitely not as good as DWM in a sort of minimalistic point of view, right? But from a point of view of a netbook class laptop, which is what this is, I think Mate is perfect, and I think that it's actually better than KDE. But I'm not going to keep saying that because I've said that many times in my other Pinebook Pro videos. And this is about Endeavour OS, so we're just going to be talking about it. Okay, so yeah, so if we run NeoFetch, we can see the kernel that it's running. So it's not the latest, absolute latest kernel, but it's pretty um, current. I would say it's not an outdated one. Yeah, we got the OS name here, my device. Package manager is of course Pacman because this is very important. Endeavour OS is a derivative of Arch Linux. And so what does that mean? We inherit a lot of the benefits of Arch Linux, which will make, maintaining this system. I mean, it depends on your point of view, but from my point of view, maintaining this system is very straightforward. Installing things is very straightforward. I'll get into some of the things that I've put on here later on, but But anyway, yeah. So we have our desktop environment here, mates, the resolution, the window manager theming, the terminal, the font. I should change the font to my favorite one, and then we get some hardware info here. And yeah, so we can see we're chewing up about 2 gigs of RAM. I think I also, let me just double check to see. Whoops. Okay, yeah, I did set up swap. Yeah. So I also set up swap because I remember when I tried running, I think it was Manjaro or Debian. I'm not too sure. But anyway, uh essentially this laptop doesn't have enough memory, and although the system did run with just, these 3 gigs of RAM, whenever I would open a browser like Chrome, it would start stuttering and just behaving awkwardly, and I could tell that it was because in the background it was constantly killing tasks and then restarting tasks, and it just really hurt performance. So you really need to have some swap space set up. I don't know why it's not using the swap, but I'm pretty sure that as soon as I start, watching some videos, doing some extra work, it'll start going into the swap space. Maybe not uh, to this degree of 9 gigs, but yeah, you need some swap space for this Pinebook Pro. It's just, yeah, it needs the swap space. So anyway, after the install, everything has been running pretty smoothly, I'd say. I haven't tried to do anything crazy, but for example, I just got Spotify working through Widevine, so I installed that and that worked great out of the box, right? No issues there. In terms of the actual software and what you're presented with, it's pretty straightforward. I would consider this more bloated than I don't know if I would say more bloated than Manjaro. I think it's a little bit less bloated than Manjaro, but it's still pretty bloated, I'd say. There's a lot of stuff in here that I would say is kind of unnecessary. Like, see, I don't know why we have all these terminals. I guess it's because this image has a lot of software built into it, and I don't think that there's a cleanup tool. Although I did see in the welcome tool here, which is kind of a nice segue into this one because, excuse me, this is what we first see when we boot our system. We get this welcome screen here. And they've got a lot of nice links here. So, for example, if we just look at the general tab here, I think this will be quite useful if you're on a new system and you kind of don't know what you're doing and you need some assistance here. And they've got a huge collection of just resources about gaming, Grub, Intel GPUs, Pac-Man, NVIDIA. Is there an AMD section? Okay, I don't see. Maybe they call it Radeon. Huh, that's kind of strange. Maybe Radeon AMD GPUs are just easier to set up for them. I'm not too sure. But yeah, so they have a nice collection here of knowledge to help you running your system the way you want to have it, which is quite nice, right? And it's definitely more I mean, if you would consider it, sorry, not consider, but if you compare it to Arch Linux, when you boot Arch Linux, it's a black screen, right? There's nothing there for you, right? You have to find everything that you need. While this tries to collect things and present it to you in an easy manner, which is for some people this might be easier because maybe you don't have the time to really go through documentation, right, and really learn. So, for some people, they might benefit from this, right? You also have news, donation links, forum. All right, after install, this is actually very useful here to get your, how would you say, your local servers um, put in higher priority. So to get the best servers based on your location. If we click this, it will run a terminal session, and then it will update your system. I believe I already updated my system, so there are no updates available. Okay, yeah. So there's nothing there. You can also choose to just I'm not too sure what EOS. Maybe it's just Endeavour OS apps. I'm not really too sure. Uh, and then you can update Yay. So I guess this is just some core apps plus the AUR apps. Package cleanup. I'm assuming just clean up the cache. Yeah, we have a bunch of other settings here, wallpapers. Have an assistant tab here, which has similar some similar features here on this side too. Yeah, so this I would say that Endeavour OS tries to be user friendly, which is nice, you know. Um, you have Manjaro and then you have this, I would say, if you were to compare the derivatives of Arch Linux. And I'd say that they're really quite similar, but I feel like this one is a little bit more cut down, I would say. But maybe that's just more because of their community size. I think that uh, Manjaro is just larger, so I imagine that this OS would be very similar to Manjaro in terms of just other things that I see when um, when the base is the same size as Manjaro. I think that I would see a lot of similar things between them. But here on the ARM platform, at least for the Pinebook Pro, I know that a lot of this system has been actually borrowed from Manjaro. So in running this, for me, I personally think to myself, I've already strayed from Arch Linux. I've gone to Manjaro, then I'm coming to Endeavour OS, and um, it's already building upon Arch Linux, and then it's building upon Manjaro. So for me personally, you know, I still see Arch Linux and Manjaro as if you're gonna use this OS, it's already building upon two other OSs. So I'm not really too sure why I would use this OS on the Pinebook Pro, but it does work nicely. You know, it is stable, but in reality, it's borrowing a lot from what's already there. So, like for example, if we click here, let's just click on the Arch packages, and then it takes us to archlinuxarm.org. Let's click on the AUR packages, and it takes us to the AUR uh, archlinux.org packages. So yeah, I mean some things they've obviously tweaked, they've themed it, they've created a lot of specifics for this, but for me, I'm I feel like I can do all of this on Arch Linux. You know, if I were to say having a distro on the Pinebook Pro that is easy to install, I would say yeah, because the Pinebook Pro has just some quirks in it, right? It's not exactly like a traditional laptop or desktop. So installing, you know, Linux on this will not always be a straightforward thing. So if I were to say on this particular machine, would I recommend this? I would say yes, because it's a distro that I know you can write on a SD card, put it in, it's going to work, right? Whereas if I tell you go try out Void Linux, I doubt that Void Linux will boot. Um, you know, there's not always a guarantee. So in terms of that, I would recommend it. But in general, I feel like I can do all of this on Arch Linux or Manjaro, but I would prefer not to use Manjaro. But since they have borrowed a lot from Manjaro, I just have a feeling that whatever problems I've ever faced in Manjaro, I will probably face here. So it's kind of like using the same distro in my opinion, you know, except with some overlay of this because a lot of the core packages here are taken from Manjaro. So Yeah, I mean it's a good OS. It's very pretty, right? It's a good looking OS. Um, they have a good collection of documentation. It's not just, an empty website. It's updated regularly. I know that they updated the ARM Pinebook Pro images about a month or two ago, something like that. I think in June, and they fixed something with calamaris. So yeah, I would say that I recommend this on the Pinebook Pro because one, it's coming from a good base. So it's coming from Manjaro. And Manjaro is the distro that partnered with the Pinebook Pro. So um, in terms of knowing that all the hardware is tweaked well enough, I would say that's like point number one that's good, right? Point number two that's very, very important is that the image itself actually boots. It does run, and I faced very little problems except for that one thing, which was that it was stuck in um how do you say, it was stuck in the install process, right? So yeah, point number three that I would say is very good about this OS is that it is a rolling release, right? So you never have to worry about um doing a major OS upgrade, right? One thing that scares me about running Debian is that one day I will probably have to do a major upgrade, right? And then something might break at that point. And I'm kind of nervous about this because Debian runs so well that I don't really want to tinker with it like that. And that's my one drawback of Debian. But with the Pinebook Pro running Arch Linux, well, not Arch Linux, because Arch Linux does not run as much of the customizations as Manjaro does. But using this, I think the chance of having a stable OS is higher. In theory, right? Anything can happen, but I believe that running this OS to be stable for the long run might actually be the best option if you're on the Pinebook Pro and you want a system that will be supported for a long time and will always be up to date and it's actually easy to install. The installer is graphical. You don't have to deal with, doing any setup in the terminal, right? You can pick your desktop environment, the software that you want, and it's quite nice. So I would say that I'd recommend Endeavour OS for the Pinebook Pro. If you're just looking for something that has long-term support, that you have to update it regularly, but because it's built off of Manjaro, most likely, well, not it's built from Manjaro, but a lot of what is inside of here is borrowed from Manjaro on the Pinebook Pro. So you can have some confidence that the likelihood of something breaking is actually quite low on Endeavour OS. So yeah, it's been quite nice. Everything runs. Have very few complaints for it. I mean, if you like Manjaro, if you like Endeavour OS, I think running it on here will be fine. It's fast. Um, it's updated very regularly. That's one thing that I have to give credit to the devs for because packages are updated regularly. And even on, I know that they were having some problems on Arch Linux ARM recently, and there was like maybe I don't know 3 weeks, 2 weeks of no updates, and I think it was because they were transitioning some packages or something like that. But yeah, um, at least for me being on here on Endeavour OS, I have not noticed that. I have gotten updates regularly, and nothing has broken yet. So yeah, I think that this would be a good distribution to introduce someone to the Pinebook Pro and Linux, because you have the terminal right, but um, it's not just a black screen, right? You have a full graphical interface, and you have the choice during the installation to go from a minimal system to a bloated system. And I think that this is quite nice to be presented this choice, right? So anyway, I think I will end it at that because pretty sure everybody understands my feelings about Endeavour OS on the Pinebook Pro. And if you appreciate the content, if you like the fat fluffy red hamster or all the OSs that I've tried on the Pinebook Pro, please give a like and a sub because it will be greatly appreciated.